Like if you were sitting on the floor, you wouldn't just sit in one position all the time. You'd probably use 5 or 6 different positions over the period of an hour watching, your favorite show.
By improving your health, you improve your quality of life. Ready to head down the path of feeling optimal? Whether you are an entrepreneur or an athlete, you can take your health to the next level. Listen as prominent guests come on to talk with Ameer about mastering your mindset, improving your sleep patterns, boosting energy levels, enhancing IQ, and in-depth analysis on biohacking your body to live your life optimally. Join over 45,000 Optimal Health warriors as we welcome the host of the Optimal Health Show, Ameer Rosic.
What is up, Optimal Health warriors, and welcome to another podcast of the Optimal Health Show. Sorry, I haven't been around that much. I've been crazy busy with the pre-launch of Reparo. If you haven't heard already, it is my brand new clothing company that protects you from all EMF. I'm talking about cell phone radiation, Wi-Fi radiation, and pretty much we're in the pre-launch stages. So if you want to get yourself a free pair of Reparo underwear, or I should say, get a chance to get yourself a free pair of Reparo underwear, head over to riparoclothing.com. You get all the details there. We are launching on November 10th on Indiegogo, so that's taking most of my time. However, I'm still here hustling away, bringing you guys the latest information in biohacking, health, and optimizing human body. That brings me to the special guest of today's podcast, which is Katy Bowman. She specializes in biomechanics, biochemistry, physiology, the whole 9 yards. And our show today is about sitting and how it's killing you. You heard the saying before, right? Sitting is the new smoking. Well, we're going to be talking about exactly why that is, what's happening in your body. So there's 2 things, how is sitting killing you, and B, what you can do about it. So we're going to discuss standing desks versus those like crazy, weird ball types of chairs, Vibram shoes versus other like barefoot shoes, some other crazy other types of shoes. We pretty go in depth on like exactly what you need to do to optimize the physiological stature of your body. So this show is jam-packed, has crazy information, and I highly recommend you stick around for the show because it's going to blow your mind. Now, if you haven't done already, I need your help. Please head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. You know it, the more reviews we have, the more people and the more optimal health warriors we can make in the world. So warriors, like I always say, without further ado, please sit back and relax and enjoy today's amazing podcast with Katy Bowman. Oh yeah. I just want to thank you once again for coming on. And the reason we have you on the show today is we're going to be talking about the spine, the general structure of the spine, and the common things that we're doing today on a day-to-day basis is screwing up our spine. In your own words, what would you say are the top 3 things that we're doing today that we shouldn't be doing?
Well, I would say that the thing that most people do that they're not aware of that probably has the most frequent impact is what you put on your feet, right? Because talking specifically about the spine, not even talking about the foot, if you have any sort of elevation or altitude underneath your heel, as compared to the front of the foot, what we call a positive heel. So if you put on a shoe every single day of your life that has somewhere between a half of an inch or, heaven forbid, like 3 or 4 inches, then your structure is altered all day long. And then you've got adaptations to every single joint, but certainly the platform that the spine is balanced on all day long. So footwear would be the biggest one, or biggest meaning most frequent. Certainly pretty subtle for a lot of people.
So then pretty much all the ladies out there who are wearing the high heels each day should reconsider that option.
Yeah, but I always want to be careful because I think people hear heel and they think high heels like, wow, that, that 3-inch high heel or professional, shoe that you wear is bad. And obviously it is, but I think that what people forget is most athletic shoes and tennis shoes have about 1.5 inch heel. So that's men and women all day long, that they wouldn't. I think that people who wear high heels know that the high heel is not, something that they're doing for their health.
Of course. Same thing like a smoker. You ask a smoker, is smoking healthy? They're like, no.
Right. And so the high heel goes, I know they're not good for me, but I love them. And you have a lot more immediate signals when you wear them. Like if you go out dancing in your shoes, you're going to get what's called the high heel hangover, or what I call the high heel hangover the next day. You're going to get punished, in sorts with your feet, letting you know that that was not okay, that you stomped around in those shoes for the wedding reception or, that night out that you did. But most of us don't wear high heels every day, all day long, but we still are all wearing something like men's dress shoes, they've got over an inch, and that's jacking you up just as much, the stuff that you're wearing to the office, and you're not getting the high heel hangover, that immediate repercussion for doing so. It's a slow accumulative change to the discs in your spine and
I was going to ask you about that. Knee. What's happening? So since our heel is elevated always with even an inch or half an inch of a heel, what's happening to our spine?
Well, it's not just the spine. It's the whole body has to offset that. So it's not an inch. Well, people go, well, it's only inch, so I'm only offsetting an inch. But you have to convert that inch to degrees. So if you imagine 360 degrees of a circle, that half an inch rise at the base of your body might only be, maybe 20 degrees. So that means if you apply that 20-degree forward motion to the top of your head, which is, 5 to 6 feet off of the ground, imagine that upper part of your body being 20 to 30 degrees off its axis. You'd be walking around with this major lean forward. So your body has all these coping mechanisms or adjustments that it can make by bending your knees a little bit or tucking your pelvis a little bit to bring you upright, to help mitigate some of that forward displacement. And that's where the damage is. It's like if you have to tuck your pelvis every single minute that you're wearing shoes, the discs of your spine are the loads to those structures in the lumbar spine and the sacroiliac joint are off their axes 20 to 30 degrees every single minute of your life that you're wearing shoes, which is most of the time. Most people put on shoes in the morning since you've been, a little kid, and you take them off at nighttime and you do your high impact activities in them, which means your discs have been not really behaving naturally your entire life.
Now, would you connect these two together, meaning us wearing these type of shoes could be one of the major causes of so many people having lower back issues?
Yeah, it's certainly a contributing factor, because what's the cause? Is the shoe the cause? Is the structural alteration the cause? But yeah, I would say that all of the work you're trying to do to offset or to optimize your health, use the word optimize, you're spending so much time and efforts trying to optimize, you want to make sure that you're not doing something that's undermining all of that work all of the time. And footwear is just one of those places that people don't really think to look. They're like, I'm working out, I'm eating well, I'm getting regular adjustments, and I'm doing my, core work, and you're doing all of these things. But one of the platforms that I have just professionally in general is, but why are you needing to do all those things? Those are spot treatments for something else that you're doing all the time or not doing all of the time that makes those things necessary, because those things aren't necessarily natural things that the human being should have to do. So I would definitely say that there's a mechanical link between footwear and spinal disease that is not really rocket science, that is really just basic, 10th grade geometry.
Do we have any options? For example, I wear Vibrams very often. So would you recommend people wearing these like no heel types of shoes?
Yeah. A zero rise shoe, and Vibram was certainly one of the forerunners in getting those out there, but it doesn't even have to be that extreme in terms of, I love Vibrams because they're real close to a minimal in that they're flat and super mobile. And there's a few other characteristics of a shoe that makes it minimal or not. But anything with a zero rise, there's a lot of options. A lot of people don't feel comfortable wearing Vibrams to work. If you're not fortunate enough to get to work from home or work in a really open-minded place, there are a lot of companies that are coming up that have all sorts of zero drop or zero rise options, which means there is no altitude of the heel above the toe, so that you don't have to worry about that geometry problem all day long.
Do women have any options? For example, if you're a professional working in a corporation, which maybe you have a dress code, do they have any second options they can wear? Because obviously they can't really bring in Vibrams.
Yeah, no, Vibrams are not a good option. And I would say that there are a lot of companies starting to make, well, I guess what would be easiest to call a ballet flat or something that's low profile. If you're, I always say when I write, it's if your job requirements require a heel, that's usually an OSHA guideline that is someone's violating something somewhere. I knew that flight attendants for a long time had to wear at least a 2-inch heel. That was the requirement for the job. But now, I mean, you can get away with something that's just not something that's nice looking. And I don't mean like that subjectively, but I mean something like a Vibram is pretty high profile. Like, look at my feet, and people, it's distracting. I would say for a lot of people, they would feel it's distracting. But you can find all sorts of healthier options now because it's certainly become mainstream in the last 2 or 3 years.
What is now the second thing that you think is really causing us harm?
Oh, furniture. You know, are you familiar with the whole like sitting is the new smoking thing?
Yes, very.
Right. So I would say that it's not like this. I think people understand the sitting is a new smoking to be something about activity. Like if you're sitting a lot, that means that you're just more of a sedentary person. But I really think it's the geometry that sitting creates. It's a very specific geometry that we have where there's knee flexion and hip flexion to 90 degrees and lumbar spine flexion. When you put all those things together, what's happening on the cellular level is you're putting bends in your arterial system that are not supposed to be there at such a high frequency. And it starts messing with the stiffness of your arteries and the interactions between the way your blood cells are flowing through your tubes. And so I'll say furniture is the problem, but what we're missing because of furniture is a wide variance of body postures. Like if you were sitting on the floor, you wouldn't just sit in one position all the time. You'd probably use 5 or 6 different positions over the period of an hour watching, your favorite show. But if you're on the couch, you're just going to be in one. And so when you don't have that high variance of constantly changing joint positions, then there's a whole cellular loading thing that makes disease. And so it's not just stop sitting so much, it's start using all of your body positions a lot more. But furniture is really debilitating. Furniture to me is like having junk food in the house. It's really hard to eat well if every time you open the cupboards, you've got like bags of chips and candy bars and ice creams and stuff hitting you on the head. And when you walk into your house and it's nothing but couches and comforters and you've got a big, cushioning bed, it's the equivalent to undermining your whole movement practices. So like there's whole foods and there's whole movement, and furniture has got to go, as much as you can
Then what
stand.
options do we have? So you're saying it got to go. What can we replace it with?
Well, you don't have to replace it with anything. Like the key is to not replace it with anything. Most of the world doesn't have furniture in their house in the way that we in the United States, in Canada, and I would say like the Western world has furniture. Most cultures, have big, giant, beautiful rugs on their floor, and you just sit on them. I have an online tour of my house. Like my house isn't void of furniture. It's got everything else in there. It just doesn't have a lot of stuff to sit on, but I've got big, cushions for sitting, like Eastern style cushions, and I have rugs, and it's very comfortable and it's decorated, but there's nothing that supports you. Meaning like when you sit on a couch, if you perched on the edge of your couch or sat on your couch, cross-legged, that's totally different than how we use our couches, which is, you just flop into the whole entire thing. And if that couch magically disappeared, you would become aware that you were using no musculature to support yourself in that position, which is very similar to what happens when you're in a cast, right? When you're in a cast, you have some sort of joint configuration change without any muscular force being utilized. And over time, your body adapts to that shape, and then you end up with muscle atrophy and what they call frozen shoulder, and you have to go to have someone break up that tissue and you never really fully recover. Well, all of us are suffering to that to a certain degree when the bulk of our time is in these, what I call passive positions, where furniture is literally doing the work for your musculoskeletal system.
What's your take on standing desks?
I like them when they're used with understanding. So swapping standing all day for sitting all day is a really, really tiny step. And in about 30 years, when everyone has moved to standing workstations, I would propose that there's going to be a resurgence of all of the standing injuries that were back in the early 1900s, which is why we went to sitting in the first place.
then would you recommend you can just do a hybrid, like stand, sit, kind of a mixture?
Hybrid, yes. And I think that you can use a standing workstation. You have to use the standing workstation physically. So if you're just like, hey, I read, sitting is bad for me, so now I'm just going to get the standing workstation, and you stand in it in the same way, which is, you're leaning on it, your elbows are resting on it, your hips are resting forward on it, and you're really static the whole entire time. That's totally different than using a raised platform to bring your monitor and your keyboard up to you, where you are focusing on, your alignment, and you're standing in a different way, and you're working with, I have like a real specific prescription of what you should be doing at a standing workstation, which would be like stretching your calves and working your feet and retrofitting that area with maybe like a cobble mat. So if you don't have shoes on, you can be working all of the muscles and the connective tissues in the feet. And most importantly, keep the lower leg pump going, because standing, pooling blood isn't really great for the venous return system. Fidgeting, and then making sure that you are at your desk just for, what's the best word to say? Not as frequently, meaning that you're taking more frequent movement breaks, that you, instead of working all day and then going to go exercise for like 90 minutes on the outside of that you distribute 30 or 40 minutes of that movement throughout your workday, and every half an hour go do something for 4 to 5 minutes that drastically changes your position. And then in that case, I think that you're bringing in more of the overlying principle. You don't want to miss the principle of the thing, which is we need to be moving more.
So then what's your whole thing on the whole treadmill desk? So I'm actually walking while typing away at the computer.
I know. Well, so treadmill desks are really great in certain respects in that they get you moving while you're working. So that's great. The problem with treadmill desks, though, is walking on a treadmill is different than walking over ground. And so what I spend my time trying to teach people is really the more looking at movement with the same critical eye that we now look at nutrition, right? So like the most basically educated person about nutrition will go like, how many fats, how many carbs, how much protein is in this thing that I'm going to eat? But obviously I can be eating a Snickers bar and applying that same basic, it's got this much protein, this much fat, and this many carbs or sugars or whatever. So we understand that there's like this whole other level of understanding food. It's like, well, how old is it? What were the conditions in which it grew? How does this thing that I'm about to eat fit into the context of everything else that I'm eating? Am I fasting? With what frequency? What is the distribution of food throughout the day? There's all these other variables that affect nutrition and health. Well, but no one casts that same critical eye to movement. And so what I've tried to do professionally is help people understand the more nuanced variables of movement, and how exercise, as we do it, is more like junk food and less like a whole nutritious movement diet. Like that's what I'm trying to help people get to. So treadmills is like junk food, because junk food, the definition of junk food is something that provides something good, which would be like calories or energy, but it comes with this whole other bucket of consequence that you have to deal with. And treadmills are the same. So treadmills get you that thing, which is movement in a metabolic sense, and it moves some levers in some way, but it comes with a bucket of consequence, because treadmill walking is an unnatural way for a human to walk. And so the muscular adaptations that come from treadmill walking, like the muscles that you use to get yourself to move forward on a belt that's moving backward, are different than the muscles that you would use as you go over ground. So you start to develop these muscular patterns that are themselves associated with diseases of the pelvis and the low back. So it's this kind of balancing system with a walking treadmill, in that you're trying to figure out how you can be at your desk more without doing your body harm. And I always like to say, it's really, you can't really fool Mother Nature. She's got it down, and all we can do is do our best to get what we need to do done in the practical real world, but while still trying to honor the fact that, if health is a big priority, how to do that in the best possible way. So walking 9 hours in a non-reflex driven way, especially if someone is already having knee or back or pelvic health issues, would not be a great solution. Although if someone was just thinking about metabolically, how can I, expend more calories and how can I keep my muscular pumps going, then it is good. So there's all these trade-offs, and I don't think there's a right answer, besides quit your job and just go outside and walk around all the time. I don't know if there's a right answer, but I definitely like to put all of those cost benefits out there because, there is someone out there who will have pelvic floor disorder who's like, but I just got this standing workstation and I've been walking on it, 8 to 9 miles a day. And then lo and behold, later on, there's some sort of pelvic floor or spinal consequence from them doing the thing that they were trying to do to be healthier. So I just keep trying to put all that data out there and let people make educated decisions for themselves.
Right. At the end of the day, all we are is just educators and teachers, and it's up to the person who's reading it to apply that information.
Correct.
So what would you say is the third most harmful thing?
Work computers. I would say computers in general. And God, I love my computer. So I don't, but screens, I'm going to modify it to screen. Screen time is now emerging as a whole entire separate variable to being sedentary. So that's kind of a technical thing. A lot of people are like, well, I exercise, or when I'm with my love, I mean my smartphone, we're moving around a lot together. But there's this whole relationship with being with the way that your mechanosensors are loaded, and almost all of the cells in your body have mechanosensors. They're cells specialized to sense the way that your whole body, but specifically the area of those cells, are accelerating in the position that you're in, and all of that information gets put into your brain, and then what comes out is your body. So the shape, the health of your body, all of those things are based on how you've your mechanical environment. Your mechanical environment is an epigenetic factor.
Well, it's pretty crazy. Like you see everyone today, I call it FaceTime, or my friend Bella calls it FaceTime. People are literally spending the majority of their day staring at their cell phone.
Sure.
Right, their head down, just, oh, thank you, master.
Yeah, bowing to the smartphone. And it's as I'm trying to help people understand, it's not like there's like the alignment on the big scale, which is like, look how crappy your head and neck and your shoulders and your hands and all that's positioned. So you're trying to fix that. But then there's this whole other more subtle mechanical loading that's happening between the muscles in your eyes, and the screen that you're looking at. If you have earbuds in your ears all day long, the compressive loads to the mechanosensors in your ears that translate sound. And there's a really brilliant neuroscientist who's like, if you are even questioning whether or not the thing you're listening to is too loud, then that means that biologically it's already way too loud, that we're just kind of like beating ourselves up. But it's like 100% of the time. Your phone is next to you, the light comes on, and you open your eyes in the dead of night, and all of a sudden, like, your eyes get this crushing contraction that's similar to doing like this huge squat with 100 pounds on your back. And we're doing it to such our small tissues, and we've been doing it such all of the time that we just don't recognize that we're all in this pot of boiling water, and someone just keeps turning the temperature up, and you just don't feel it because we're all in it together, and it's all the time.
So if you had to summarize, what are some strategies people can start doing right away today to better their posture and their structural integrity?
Well, first off, like on the most minute level, eyes and ears, just go out and take a walk. Take a walk in the light. Get out of your house, get out of your chair, and move around. Don't even pay any attention to how that's going down. Just do it. And then the second piece would be, now that you're breaking the chain, or I always think of like people as starfish. You have to peel them off, and they've got 1 billion suction cups to their old habits. So you're peeling off of your habits. Now start looking to what you slap onto your feet every morning and going, wow, I only have such a small amount of time to move better towards my health, and it's a priority for me. Start looking at the more subtle ways that you're moving that aren't serving you. So if you have the opportunity to pick between a minimal and a heeled shoe, pick the minimal. But then I'll add something onto that going, if you've always been wearing, like if you are out there and you are like a 2 to 3 inch heel wearer all of the time, that your tissues have adapted to that 2 to 3 inch heel, and that there's a whole series of preparational exercises you can do to start breaking down the adaptations you had to footwear that make that transition even better for your body. Like, just because you take your shoe off doesn't mean that you take the shoe out of your body. Just because you get out of the chair doesn't mean you take the chair out of your body when you've been doing them with such high frequency as you've developed. So there's this whole natural movement, towards moving and being or behaving more naturally. But what we're not really talking about is how adapted we were to what we did before, and how the difference between the two needs to be dealt with. That there's a physiologically sound progression to training, right? Like, you wouldn't get off your couch and go, I've been a couch potato for 15 years, but dang it, I'm going to run a marathon today. And, you would, if you went and tried to do that, not only would you fail, you would like be pretty hurt in the process, not just while you were doing it. You wouldn't just tap out while you're doing it, but there would be repercussions for a long period of time. And a lot of things that we do in terms of training, because they're natural, like, hey, squatting's natural, so I'm going to start squatting, 100 times a day. It's like, well, guess what? Your squatting facets that you were born with have gone away because you didn't squat. Your bones filled those in. And then there's this whole progression that you need to do to get them back. So that's my message on top of that. So get out of your chairs, get out of your shoes, and just practice leaving your screen away from you. Like, go to the bathroom without it sometimes. Stand in line without it sometimes, and just see what it feels like. Because like, there's a difference. You don't have to get a divorce, but you might have to break up a little bit. You might have to break up just a little bit, because you can certainly, I would say, defend some of the wonderful benefits of all like the social media and the fact that people are really getting healthier because they have such a wide exposure to more information than they would have, which is really wonderful, I think, for the human. But there's a difference between taking the opportunity to utilize the benefits of technology and becoming addicted to it. And it's a fine line. And so a good test is, can you put your technology down for 3 minutes when you want to use it 5 times a day? So that's like my 15-minute rule. Like, you need to break up with your technology 5 times every day for 3 minutes. You can get back together and you can make out as soon as you get back together, but you have to break up at least 5 times a day for 3 minutes.
I love it. If you had to summarize, what would be your number one optimal health tip?
Walk. You're not walking enough. No one's walking enough.
That's true. It's
your birthright. It's your
Yeah.
birthright. There's nothing else that a human is fashioned to do more so than walk.
We should have a mandatory of everybody in corporation or corporate jobs that they get like a 15 to 20 minute walk session.
I think that people should have their human cards revoked if they don't take at least a 3-mile walk a day. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like you have to have a driver's license. You should have a human license, and it should involve passing the walk test. Amazing.
Katy, where can people find more information about you?
My blog's probably the best place. It's katysays.com, KATYSAYS.com. Or our institute is the Restorative Exercise Institute.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Optimal Health Show, and have a fabulous day.
Thanks, Ameer.